From the games that had you combating invaders from space, to classic 90s fighting games and everything in between and after, action games span such a period of time and wide variety that it's honestly hard to keep track of them all. At any given moment, you could be fighting your way through the jungle, rampaging through hell itself, or maybe even just fighting cartels in a neon-lit 1980s Miami. However you prefer your action to be served, there is something on this list for you. Maybe you've played it before, maybe it's even your favorite, or maybe you'll find something completely new for you to try out. Any way you take it, grab a seat, buckle up, and let's take a look back at some classic action games. Starting off our list at number 10 is a monolithic game franchise that punch-walked its way across our screens and arcade cabinets for the first time in 1992. This is the ultra-violent fighting game series, Mortal Kombat. It's really hard to talk about action games without mentioning at least one fighting game, and yes, there are plenty of them out there, and yes, all of them are pretty great, but none really seem to have the stranglehold on the gaming world and pop culture quite like Mortal Kombat does. Becoming known for its over-the-top fatalities, ultra-violent combat, and unique blend of martial arts and magic, this series has grown to be one of the highest grossing media franchises of all time. With over 25 games in the series and 9 movies to boot, it's safe to say it's iconic. I lost so many quarters back in the day playing these games and being very, very bad at them, but they still hold up incredibly well to this day, featuring classic digitized sprites based on real actors and the iconic voice lines that are burned into our brains. Booting up one of these titles is just a nostalgic roller coaster when it all comes flooding back to you, and it's hard to get more action out of a game than in Mortal Kombat. So if you haven't tried out the originals, or maybe you were just the king of the arcade back in the day and you want to check if your skills still hold up, go on, do it. Your flawless victory could be waiting for you. Moving along to number 9, we have a series of games that were dubbed Resident Evil but with dinosaurs and fed off your primal fear of being hunted. This is Dino Crisis. Originally launching in the summer of 1999, this visceral, action-packed horror game follows the story of a special operations agent named Regina, who is sent with a team to investigate a secluded island research facility. But after discovering the facility is overrun with dinosaurs, she has to fight to survive and ultimately escape the island with her team. Dino Crisis is kind of a special game, as it was developed to have the player experience a more visceral terror, with the dinosaurs being quick, intelligent, and more violent. So much so that Capcom would later market the game as panic horror, as opposed to the survival horror that they had come to be known for. It's definitely a product of its time, but there's no denying that its action will get your heart racing from the very start and keep you on your toes till the very end. If you have yet to try out this classic series, both games are part of our preservation program and have been updated to run on modern PCs. So what are you waiting for? Go get hunted. Moving along to number 8 on our list is a survival horror game that is cold, creepy, and often overlooked. This is the 2005 cult classic Cold Fear. Taking place on a Russian whaler ship, you play as a Coast Guardman named Tom Hansen, who responds to a distress signal and soon realizes the ship he's trying to help is overrun with a parasite that has turned the crew into zombie-like creatures. He then sets out to make sure that that parasite and the creatures aboard the ship never make it to land. Now, this game didn't do well at launch, but as a lot of survival horror games from this era did, over the years it grew into a sleeper hit, becoming known for its great soundtrack, unique story, and that oh-so-good classic survival horror combat. And in late 2025, 20 years after its initial release, the game was unceremoniously removed from sale on digital storefronts, only to be saved a few weeks later by us and added to our preservation program to be maintained and updated to run on modern systems for years to come. It's charming, has a great soundtrack, it's chock full of action, and unabashedly a product of its time. But it's one I don't think many people knew about or remember much, so if you like this genre, definitely go give it a try. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And at lucky number 7, we have a classic game series that is known for its action, exploration, and adventure, and is still getting new installments even 30 years later. This is Tomb Raider. Blasting its way into the gaming world in 1996, one handstand at a time, Tomb Raider and subsequently Lara Croft became household names seemingly overnight. With a gameplay mix of puzzles, 3D platforming, and revolutionary graphics for the time, this game series was so popular in the late 90s that Lara Croft became a gaming icon, transcending the medium into other formats such as car commercials, advertising food products, and even making appearances on the cover of non-gaming magazines. And at the time, this kind of media coverage for a video game was something unprecedented. The series was in fact so popular that from 1996 to 2003, there was a new Tomb Raider game released every year like clockwork, expanding upon this universe and raising a whole new generation of gamers and treasure hunters alike. There have been a couple reboots of the series over time that are incredible. A personal favorite of mine is the 2013 version, but the first 3 games are absolute classics and you should definitely play them if you haven't. They even released a remastered version of them a few years back with quality of life features, updated graphics if you choose to use them, and modern capabilities so you can run them on almost anything. everything. So there really is no excuse for you not to try them out. So what are you waiting for? Go raid some tombs. Chugging along to number 6 is a game so ahead of its time that many gamers struggled to run it upon release, and holds a legendary status in the gaming community to this day because of it. This is Crytek's 2007 hit Crysis. Set in the now distant past of 2020, you assume the role of a super soldier codenamed Nomad after an ancient alien-built structure has been discovered buried inside a mountain on an island that has been taken over by invading forces and extraterrestrials. And upon its release in 2007, this game was praised for its graphics featuring volumetric lighting, but it required notoriously high hardware requirements to run it. It was in fact so hard to run on the highest settings that it became a meme, with the phrase "can it run Crysis?" being used to joke about new gaming hardware and PC specs for years to come. Heck, I even still make the joke to this day. And even despite its demanding specs for the time, Crysis was a hit and was praised for pushing the standard of graphics in games forward, and even went on to spawn 3 sequels that were fairly well received as well. I actually didn't play a Crysis game until the 3rd one came out, where you played as a character named Prophet, and they had a really cool compound bow that you would use for stealth, and I really love that. But the series of games holds up incredibly well to this day, and they even all got a remaster a few years ago, as if they needed it, but now there is no excuse not to check them out. It's action in its purest form, and a ton of fun along the way. You know, just make sure you can run it first. If you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Now, let's move on. And at the halfway mark on our list, we have a game that has been described as Dino Crisis without the dinosaurs. I'm sorry, I can't even make the joke. Okay, yes, I'm talking about the original Resident Evil trilogy. And if you don't know this series, you're just living under a rock at this point. And hey, if you are living under a rock, that's your prerogative, it's your rock. I'm sure it's great. Wow, this video is going sideways fast. These games defined a generation of survival horror and action, becoming Capcom's bread and butter and launching the series that is still producing blockbuster hits over 30 years later. With the first game releasing in 1996 and doing crazy sales numbers, the series would go on to spawn many sequels starting in 1998 with Resident Evil 2, a game that introduced the world to the beloved Claire Redfield and the heartthrob rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy, and then would round out the original trilogy shortly thereafter in 1999 with Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, an incredibly intense entry into the series where you are periodically chased by a giant hulking villain throughout the world. Honestly, it still scares me to this day. But all 3 of these games are absolute classics that are even more scary in their original low-poly formats, overflowing with action-packed moments and really driving home that fear and allowing you to get lost in these frightening worlds. And whether this is your first time playing these games or a veteran of the series, you can't go wrong with them. So go play them. Sneaking its way onto our list at number 4 is the plague-ridden masterpiece from the legendary Arcane Studios. This is Dishonored. Originally releasing in 2012 and set in a fictional plague-ridden city named Dunwall. In Dishonored, you follow the story of Corvo Attano, a former bodyguard to the Empress of the Isles, after he is framed for her murder and is seeking revenge on those who conspired against him, and in doing so, becoming an assassin in the process. This game is one of the best action stealth games out there and has a huge emphasis on player choice, allowing you immense freedom when completing missions and allowing you to figure out unique ways to do them. The world building for this game and its sequel are second to none. It is so easy to get sucked into its lore and exploring each level to figure out new ways of doing things, and even though the game centers around you being an assassin, you can actually complete the game without ever killing anyone, by exploiting the environments around you and using Corvo's powers to complete things in your own unique ways. And if you're unfamiliar with Arcane Studios, their first game was the cult classic RPGs Arx Fatalis, and if you know that world building and the unique way that you can play it, you'll be more than happy with trying this game out. Seriously, it's so good. What do you get when a rooster, a rabbit, and a tiger all walk into a 1980s nightclub? Well, you get the next game on our list at number 3, the indie juggernaut that is Hotline Miami. Honestly, what isn't there to say about this game? Set in Miami in the year 1989, you play as an unnamed silent protagonist. If you're a fan of the game, you know him as Jacket, as he goes on a heinous killing spree targeted against a local Russian mob, all whilst listening to one of the best game soundtracks of all time. You follow Jacket as he slowly loses his grip on reality, and choose from a variety of different masks that give you special abilities to complete your task and progress through the game. Now, even though this whole game and plot of Hotline Miami is centered around violence, the story is one of pacificity, making you, the player, feel bad and regret your in-game actions. Hotline Miami is one of the most influential indie games ever, and not just in the indie space, but with AAA development as well, constantly being cited by countless game developers as inspiration for their work, and even went on to spawn a sequel game as well in 2015's Hotline Miami 2, Wrong Number. These games are addictive, action-packed adrenaline rushes that are easy to pick up and incredibly hard to put down. I can't recommend them enough, so please go play them if you haven't, and if you have, play them again. And at the penultimate spot on our list is a series that shook up the action game world back in 2001, with a devilishly handsome protagonist, S-grade combat, and a high skill level that keeps you on your toes. This is the one and only Devil May Cry series. Originally envisioned as the next step in the Resident Evil franchise, specifically Resident Evil 4, with being one of the first games to popularize and use the fast-paced arcade-style hack-and-slash combat that is used by so many games today, and combining it with grading your performance of each level you complete with the letter grade, essentially begging you to get good or die trying. The original game was praised for its difficulty and incredible style, and went on to spawn many a sequel with 5 mainline Devil May Cry games spanning the last 25 years, including a reboot, and there is no denying its place in action game history. The series is loosely based off the Divine Comedy, and you follow the main protagonist Dante, a demon hunter who uses his work to carry out a lifelong vendetta against demons who murdered his mom and brother. From style and story to the sheer fun of the games themselves, it doesn't get more action-packed than fighting demons and looking cool while doing it. And speaking of fighting demons, at the number 1 spot on our list is the hell-raising classic that is probably the most recognizable and played action game in the history of games because you can play it on almost anything. This is Doom. Yes, you've probably played this game or at least some version or iteration of it, but it's hard to beat an original, with the first game coming out in 1993 and causing an absolute frenzy in the PC gaming world, to the modern day adaptation that still tap into our primal urges of wanting to be a badass demon slayer. These games are something special. The original game is undoubtedly one of the most influential and important games to ever release and is still to this day played by millions around the world. But there are over 8 games in the mainline series and over a dozen spin-offs as well. They are action-packed, endlessly replayable, and some of the most fun you can have in gaming. They are truly iconic, and I had to put them at number 1 because they are just pure action. And I hope they keep making Doom games for forever. But as I was writing this video, the news came out that Bobby Prince, the composer and sound designer for Doom 1 and 2, and a bunch of other classics such as Wolfenstein 3D and Duke Nukem, has passed away. Normally I wouldn't mention this in a video like this, but since Doom is our number 1 here, I felt I should. He is a legendary figure who wrote a soundtrack for a generation of gamers, and his contributions to the gaming world and a lot of people's childhood won't be forgotten. Bobby Prince was 81. Go slay some demons for him. Sorry to end on a somber note, but that is our list. What do you think of it, and what games would you add to it? Let us know down in the comments. I want to hear all your thoughts. And as always, thanks for watching. Give that subscribe button a click, and I'll see you in the next video.